lunch, or having dinner. Greetings to you. And I want to go over a couple of things here, but you are now watching Cafe Wish Podcast. I am your host, Cabin Black. And as I said previously, I want to go over a couple of things here. And I have uploaded some new videos on the YouTube channel, Cafe Wish Podcast. A couple of things that I have uploaded are CWP in the Classroom, Episode 2, Whiteness in Film, Part 14. I have uploaded CWP in the Classroom, Episode 3, A Gay Like Thee. And then I uploaded Mother of Us All, Part 1. Mother of Us All, Part 1. So just to give you a catch up on what is happening on the YouTube channel, CWP in the Classroom, Whiteness in Film is going over the concept of what whiteness is, also the concepts of what blackness is. Okay? Whiteness in Film is also addressing the imagery and the past times usages of how whiteness was weaponized against people of color particularly, but also people who are considered black, okay? And during the time of Jim Crow, which was during the time of classic Hollywood, which is during the early 1930s, whiteness was used to weaponize against particularly people of color, but also black people. Now, if that offends you, if that makes you feel uncomfortable, good. Because it's a reality that people had to live through and that people have to live in the vestiges of in current times. So me being a black American, I'm living through the vestiges of what was. So if this triggers you, if this bothers you, and you don't want to watch this, understand that you have the luxury to not to have to deal with the vestiges that other people have to. And I'm speaking to people of color, I'm speaking to black people globally, I'm speaking to black people as such. Okay? So if this makes you feel uncomfortable, maybe rethink about how you live your life. I'm not judging you. I'm not bashing you. But don't judge and bash people either who want to learn about this or who care about these things that have happened to their ancestors and happened to their loved ones and family members who are still here with us. And that's happening to us. Okay? Once again, this segment of In the Classroom, CWP, Episode 2, Whiteness in Film, is covering how science, how the multimedia, how the government, how motion pictures, companies and brands and enterprises such as Hollywood in America, such as Bollywood, in India, such as Bigfoot in the Philippines, how whiteness is being used yet still in this contemporary world, and how I'm suggesting that whiteness is still a caveat for people to hide their bigotry, to hide their racism, to hide their color politics, the racial politics behind. And showing how the tendencies of what was is still what is. From a time of Jim Crow, which was during the 1877 to the mid-1960s, until now. So from modernity to contemporary. I'm going over how whiteness in film shows up and how it still wounds people, it still hurts people, it still diminishes the opportunities of people of color, particularly, but specifically Black people globally. And I also make a mention that Blackness is the remedy for whiteness. Some people may disagree, some people may agree. But Blackness, I go into what that means, right? Blackness is not something that is the boogeyman. Ooh, I'm scared, of blackness. No, that's not what blackness is. Blackness is not what someone imagines in their mind when they're sleeping and something's creeping in their room, or there are all the stereotypes and the tropes that were used against people of color, particularly and specifically Black people globally, about what blackness is. No, blackness is a unifying factor. I talk about the out of Africa theory, which my research. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Café Wish Podcast live. I'm your host, Caben Black. Come on in. You're welcome, welcome. Whether you are up early in the morning, in the afternoon, or evening, whether you are relaxing at your house, eating your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or whether you're on the job, whether you are hanging out Sunday fun day with your family. Welcome, welcome. All are welcome. Okay. So I'm going to pivot and talk about A Gay Like Thee. So I recently uploaded CWP in the Classroom, episode 3, Gay Like Thee, part 1. So A Gay Like Thee is going over the tropes and the stereotypes of what it means to be gay or gayness or LGBTQIA+. It goes over the stigmatisms, the taboo in society globally of gay people as such. And when I mean by gay people, I'm using it as a SALT term. A SALT term is typically used to speak in generality. Now, I'm a person who does not necessarily like to speak in generality. I prefer to speak in specificity, but for the case in point of A Gay Like Thee, I'm speaking in generality. Okay. So A Gay Like Thee also goes over the concepts of what it means to live a gay life, what it means to have the experiences of a gay person, regardless if you're in America, regardless if you're South America, Africa, Australia, Asia, Europe, wherever you're from. We all have a unified experience that are similar, not the same, but similar. And I also address the spirituality and the religious component that has been weaponized to be used against people who are quote unquote gay or are part of the LGBTQIA plus community. I address scripture. I address stereotypes, tropes. I address different talking points from people who actually live this life, and to people who actually can identify with someone who is gay. Maybe they have a relative who's gay. Maybe they have a parent or a sibling or a grandparent or an uncle or an auntie. We all can relate to this topic here in the classroom, A Gay Like Thee. So I encourage you to check that out as well. And I also go over historical facts of A Gay Like Thee. I connect that to the usage or the utility term of eunuch. So if you want to learn more about what a eunuch is, if you want to learn more about what it means to be gay in 2026, if you want to learn about the religious and spiritual side of what a eunuch is in comparison to what the weaponization of homosexuality, how people use history, culture, religion to weaponize against these people, these types of people who I am a proud member of the LGBTQIA plus community as well, and as the Black community globally. I understand the tropes of both. I understand the stereotypes of both. I have the lived experiences of a black like thee, a black like me, and a gay like thee, and a gay like me. So I understand what it means to be all of that. And the last upload video is the mother of us all. Now, the mother of us all is a unifying, another relatable unifying piece of my puzzle here. The mother of us all is going to the cultures, the ethnicities that date back way back when, from antiquity times, far as the earliest forms of human evolution when it comes to societal or when it comes to civilization, and how humans have evolved and how we all are connected to this first group of family or first group of families who have developed from a tribalism to civilization to a globalization, all stemming and starting from Africa, okay? So if you want to check that out, I encourage you to check that out. All right, so now I went over a couple of business modules here when it comes to uploading videos. Now I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to transition going into some notes. So some notes that I want to address is that I believe last class I was touching on whiteness in film. And once again, feel free to check those videos out. And I addressed the genetics and how the Y chromosome is the paternal chromosome, and how that connects 1/3 of the human population to Africa, to a black male or several black men or black males from Africa, and how 1/5 of the global population, this is ratio, right? This is not exactness as specificity requires. This is more of speaking in ratio terms, right? 1 out of 3, 1 out of 5, okay? So it's an estimation, something to approximate, okay, estimate. So 1 out of 5 people have the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. That's what comes from their maternal side. So that also comes from Africa, meaning as 1 out of 5 people can trace their mitochondria cells back to a female or several females, or a woman or several women who come from Africa. So you have the Y chromosome, and then you have the mitochondria chromosome. And both of them exemplify or showcase a family or several families coming out of Africa, okay? So we can all trace back to that. All right, so that's covering some notes. Now I want to step into a new class, if you will. It's a live, so it's not necessarily a class, but I just want to talk freely a little bit about the upcoming segments that I'm going to be addressing when I upload to YouTube. So without further ado, let's get into that. All right, so I have something that is very like a catchphrasey, if you will. I call it all about the Afro. All about the Afro. So if we can just wonder and just kind of think about what that title even talks about. Let's just kind of expand our imagination. Let's just enjoy this moment of talking about what that means. Let's explore this topic. All about the Afro. Okay, what does the Afro mean for most people? Some people, the Afro symbolizes a movement. The Afro symbolizes power. politically. The afro symbolizes hair texture. The afro symbolizes hope. The afro symbolizes, on the negative side, nappy. The afro symbolizes danger for some people. The afro symbolizes degradation, poverty for some people. The afro symbolizes ambiguity, laziness, sluggardness, niggardness. The afro symbolizes many of things to many of people, depending on who you ask. Okay. So for here at Café Wish Podcast, the afro is a term that's used and it's going to continually be used. So we're going to merge the term afro with Asiatic, Afro-Asiatic. So we may know what afro means, and different people have different experiences and different emotions when it comes to the term afro, right? And then we have Asiatic. If we think about that term and all of what that means, we typically think of Asian, right? Well, yes and no. So Asiatic is tied to a region, yes, but a region that's near Eastern to Africa and by way to Asia. So it's the bridge gap, the Levant of Africa, I should say. The Middle East of Africa, the Levant of Africa, okay? The Asiatic of Africa, the Asian of Africa. Remember, if you watched a couple of my videos and or if you have watched my lives, I brought out the information. This is the information that I brought out. That prior to the World War II, prior to World War I, and prior to the Civil War in America, during the time of early modernity or beginning of modernity, during the 1850s and 1860s, when Asia was gaining their independence from colonization, and they also were getting their freedom from white Euro slavery, the Asian community, indigenous community, saw themselves as black, or they had a black nationalism. Or initially they embraced a black nationalism, which means that they knew who they were. They had an understanding of where they came from. They knew that they were from a people of Africa. They knew that they were African descent, and they knew they were from the people of the soil. Meaning, as a global people of the soil is typically a Caribbean expression, a Jamaican expression, but it's typically in anthropology, I'm using that term or that expression, people of the soil, as a global unifier. Meaning, as black nationalism is not just talking about black people as you see it, right? Black nationalism was something that Asians embraced initially. Initially to what? Well, there was something called white Eurasianism, okay? That began in Europe or with European people or European descendants, okay? Fast forward, all right, the Asian communities globally were radicalized during this time of modernity, during the early 1860s, all the way to, so basically I'm doing between wars, from the American Civil War to the global World War I and the global World War II, Asia was being radicalized. And I'm not saying this, this is coming from Dr. Yi Zhang, who I believe is Asian. Yi Zhang is an Asian name, not to be stereotypical or rude, but that's just what it is. Dr. Yi Zhang may be an Asian American, maybe not. But with their works, I was able to read from their essay, from their literature, expressing how Asia embraced initially a black nationalism prior to the global ratification or the global ratification of the black nationalism that they held on to. They were radicalized. Some were radicalized politically, just in diffusion of information, eugenics, some were radicalized violently, okay? And there was a lot of genocides that have happened. Now, this is me saying this, that's coming from a historical point of view. I'm not making it up. I'm just going over the information, the history that was brought out, okay? So Asia initially embraced, once again, a black nationalism that was robbed from them, that was stolen from them, that was eradicated from them. Not all together, but for the most part, Asian people were radicalized to believe in a white Eurasianism, okay? So that's very important to understand in contemporary times. So in modernity, Asia had a black nationalism that they embraced initially. And then contemporary, we see they embrace now a white Eurasianism, okay? How do I know this? Well, they embrace whiteness. How do I know this? Because it's remember the roots, the eugenic tree, okay? Those who remember the segment that I uploaded about the eugenic tree, okay? The eugenic tree has roots, and those roots run deep, and those roots go over the institutions that are within every nation, society, etc. Every nation, every society, every civilization in contemporary times. And in Asia, dealing with the eugenics tree, every root has been polluted or has been engaged with whiteness or white Eurasianism. And we see this in their institutions. We see them in the education, what they're taught, what they watch in movies and film, whiteness in film, okay? What they are learning in their history, what they're learning in their poetry, and their anime, whiteness in film, whiteness in anime, and their comics and their mangas. And this is not a judgment. This is just showing you where we are, okay? This is more so an evaluation. Remember, this is coming from my research, a Kemetic-Shemitic hypothesis. So I'm not judging. I'm just bringing out observations. I'm just bringing out information. I'm just introducing or reintroducing what it means for the understanding of what Kemetic-Shemitic is according to my research. Okay, that's coming from other sources other than me, and also some of my sources that I am studying and also creating here as well. So Asia embraced initially a black nationalism that was taken from them, radicalized out of them by way of white Eurasianism between the Civil War, between the Civil War, World War I, and World War II. Okay. And now we see how that shows up in whiteness, shows up in Asia today. It's through their institutions. Once again, going back to the eugenics tree, it shows up in their institutions. All right. So now I'm going to get into more. So I repeat myself. Let me just say this. I repeat myself quite often and quite a lot. I realized I do that is because I think 70% of what we learn, what we hear, what we see, what we say, what we write, what we feel, what we experience, 70% is only remembered if we see it, say it, hear it, feel it, write it, experience it. Outside of that 70%, it's lost. So I repeat myself as a mechanism to help reinforce what I am trying to diffuse, if you will. What I'm trying to educate here. What I'm trying to speak about here. Okay. So now let's move further deeper into what I'm talking about in this live. Once again, this is not a classroom. This is just to introduce different topics and what I'm talking about. And I'm trying to do it in a tactful way. Hopefully it's entertaining, maybe not, but I'm working on that. All right, so I'm gonna go over some terminology. Okay, so I coined a phrase, or I coined a term, not a phrase. I have coined a term called aphrasianism. Aphrasianism is from my perspective study. It's from the 21st century because we live in the 21st century. Okay, this is the working definition that I have created for the term aphrasianism that I have coined. Okay, a hyper-focused study that advocates towards the idealism of indigenous Black people groups that will cover Black Americans, North and South, Black Australians, Black Asian, Black African, Black European, thoroughly established as an international and unified community. I'll read it again more quickly. Aphrasianism, a hyper-focused study that advocates towards the idealism of indigenous Black people groups, Black Americans, North and South, Black Australian, Black Asia, Black Africa, Black Europe, thoroughly established as an international unified community. Now, I'm going to go over another term. I did not coin this term. This is a historical term, a sociology term, okay? Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism was created in the 20th century, okay? Here's the definition of Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is a broad movement aimed at achieving political unification across Africa and advocating for the rights and freedoms of people of African descent globally. Here's another point I want to bring out here. And by the way, I'm reading from my Substack, not my Substack. I'm reading from my Substack, okay? All right, and I'm gonna scrolling down. Okay, so here's another term I have coined. This is called the Negro Black Gene Pool. Some of this stuff may be funny or not, but you know, it's I believe we all need language for what we're trying to understand and know when something is nuanced, something that is old and has been re-illuminated to be spoken about in modern times or contemporary times, right? So there's a lot of nuance here. So this is a nuanced term, if you will. Negro Black Gene Pool, coined 21st century. Here's the working definition for Negro Black Gene Pool. The study of people groups that make up at least 90% of the global populace who are believed to be related and exist as genetical variations of sameness within a gene pool. I'll read that one more time. Negro Black Gene Pool, the study of people groups that make up at least 90% of the global populace who are believed to be related and exist as genetical variations of sameness within a gene pool. And here's another terminology that I'm coined, and this is going into my hypothesis. So if you want to go over that more, hello, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but I'm gonna say hello to everyone who said hello to me. Ahmad, Rafli, hello. How are you? Wave right back at you. How you doing? The Moonwalker. Hello. Looks like they got a picture of MJ. So hello, the Moonwalker. Hello. And then I have the Piushkajuri. It says, bro. Hello, bro. All right. So I'm covering once again. So let me reintroduce what's happening here. Hello, everyone who's new, who's coming in. This is Café Wish Podcast. I am Kaben Black, your host, and I'm going over in this live a couple of coin terms. Currently, this is what I'm doing right now. All right. So, Kemetic and Shemitic hypothesis. So, this is my own independent hypothesis and research study, and I coined this term because I needed the language to understand what I am trying to accomplish here. And what I'm trying to accomplish here is in the definition. So there is one definition, and I elaborate on what this definition means in two parts. Okay, Kemetic and Shemitic hypothesis. My prospective study coined. 1. The study of two biblical groups, Kim and Shem, who are thought to be contemporary brown or black people groups that descend from the indigenous first humans and originators of the Afro-Asiatic languages, which share identical ancestral foundations or roots. Okay. Now I'm gonna read the breakdown. Okay. So here's the breakdown of that definition. Kemetic and Shemitic hypothesis, my perspective study coined. Here's the breakdown definition. The study of two biblical people groups, Shem and Kim, believed to have origins from the Northeast African region, who are thought to be contemporary brown and black peoples, not white Euro genetics, that descend from the indigenous first humans and originators of the Afro-Asiatic languages that do not have white Euro origins, which share identical ancestral foundations or roots, Homo sapiens sapiens. So the definition is very plain to me, but let me see if I can make it more plain to you. So the Kemetic and Shemitic hypothesis is dealing with two people, Kim and Shem. Kim and Shem are both biblical people groups, okay, who are thought to be contemporary. So Shem and Kim are thought of in this hypothesis to be what people call politically race politics, brown and black people. And these brown and black people descend from the first humans, Homo sapiens sapiens. And these first humans are the originators of languages. One of them, of all languages that were originated, is the Afro-Asiatic language families. Okay? And both Kim and Shem share identical ancestral foundations or roots. So my Kemetic Shemitic hypothesis is to prove that. It says at 93 billions 27. Hello, chef. Well, hello there. Not to be disrespectful. Hello, how are you? He says, I'm from India. Welcome. Welcome from India. How you doing, India? So we got India in the room. We got Malaysia in the room. We got the Philippines in the room. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? How you doing? All right. Now I'm going to go over another term, if I can find it. If I can't, I'll just skip over it and go into some articles. Okay, I'll just go into some articles. All right. So on my Substack, Caben Black, I have written some articles or maybe essays, if you will. Short essays, short articles, nothing lengthy. So you don't have to worry about me reading to you continuously. All right. But this is what I wrote. Concerning colorism and skin color politics, preferably skin color politics. This is what I write. It never ceases to amaze me. People who are highly educated and who are critically acclaimed to be wise seem to be the most willfully ignorant. Their genius and intelligence is willfully fundamentally functional in whiteness, ideologies and whiteness spaces. As an example, if this type of person observes another person and sees that he or she has a particular darker hue color, then that person, the observer, would usually identify that darker color of skin with the continent of Africa initially. Though there is nothing wrong with being from Africa or being a descent from Africa, notwithstanding, there is a question that must be asked, and that question's answer is a requirement for sanity's sake. The question is, do the so-called educated intellectuals critically acclaim wise men or wise women and smart peoples of the world know that there are Black, indigenous people groups from every continent? If they actually knew the exact answer and would have the courage to give a proper response in good faith, would they answer that question in honesty? Or would they reply? Or would they reply with an answer that is birthed from white Euro color politics? If they're being dishonest and choose to provide a reply to this question with white Euro politics on skin color might read like this. Black people are from sub-Saharan Africa. The indigenous people from the other 5 continents who are darker skinned, yeah, they're not actually Black. They have darker skin colors because of the position of the sun and their location to where they live. In other words, these darker skinned people groups typically lives near the equator. The light, bright, and almost white people groups typically live further away from the equator. Yeah, and I bet that this type of smart person must not know that 1 out of 5 Chinese people are African descent. They also must not know that the Aborigine people groups are genetically African. Yes, this type of person must not know that the indigenous people of Asia and South America and the Caribbean are known as Negritos and Negrita. The indigenous peoples of the West Indies are called Moreno or Maroons. The term Negrito and Moreno translates to the term Black. Some would suggest brown, but Black is a derivative of brown because no one is actually this color. No one's this color. Okay. Continue on. And finally, this type of person must not know that the indigenous peoples to Europe are literally Black and from Africa. By the way, to be African and African descent does not always mean a person is going to be darker skinned. But who cares about the facts when you're drunk? When you're drunk on white Euro ideologies, right? So that's my little article that I wrote, or my little essay that I wrote. All right, so I'm going to continue on my Substack, Cape Black. All right, and I'm going to scroll down, scrolling down. I'm scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down. I'm scrolling down. I'm scrolling down. Okay. Scrolling down, scrolling down. Bear with me. Please bear with me. I'm scrolling down. Bear with me, I'm scrolling down. All right. Bear with me, I'm scrolling down. Okay. So here's another article I wrote. It's on my Substack called Cape Black. Okay. All right. Okay. This article or this essay is entitled Beauty of Blackness, How Images in the Media Muller the Beauty of Afro Phenotypes. I write, there is a cliche that everyone, hold on, sorry, maybe start there, trying to get this. I should probably get a mouse. Yeah, maybe it may be a lot easier. Okay, so the essay reads, entitled once again, let me read the title. Beauty of Blackness, How Images in the Media Molar the Beauty of Afro Phenotypes. Okay. I need to get a mouse. All right. So there is a cliche that everyone knows to be true. And it goes like this. A picture has 1,000 words. A picture adds value to any context that it is representing. Pictures are images that help define a person, a place, or thing. That definitive illustration provides signals, messages to the psyche. And images not only delivers messages to the minds of people, but images also convey persuasive symbolic meanings that can become significant in our lives. Now let's look at images in people groups. How a particular people in a community are perceived through imagery could be helpful or harmful. In today's world of worlds, there has been an abundance of anti-Blackness depicted in mass media. This anti-Black persuasion This anti-Black persuasion has been pumped into multimedia art for nearly half a century. From modernity to contemporary times, images have been used to spread messages that were harmful to anti-Black people. Harmful to Black people. Let me read it again. From modernity to contemporary times, images have been used to spread harmful anti-Black messages. There we go. A quick question to think about. If messages could be communicated through imagery, then what communicative messages are being expressed in anti-Black imagery? That's a question. In addition, whenever anyone researches images of Black people groups from the 16th century to the 18th century, there is an undeniable message that was being communicated. Either Black people were depicted as nobilities, or Black people were depicted as slaves. The way a specific people group is categorized by images usually impacts how other communities interact with them. The everyday man or woman are easily persuaded to think and accept what their eyes see. Perception is assumed to be true. Whether that observation is deduced to be confirmation bias or not. I'll read that part again. The everyday man or woman are easily persuaded to think and accept what their eyes see. Perception is assumed to be true. Whether that observation is deduced to be confirmation bias or not. However, in the late 19th century and early 20th century, Black peoples were shamefully illustrated in cartoons globally. Cartoons were used to portray Blacks as deformed, uncouth, and animalistic. These egregious drawings and illustrations were created predominantly by white Euro people groups in Europe and throughout the Americas and globally. These dreadful images of Black men and women, also to include Black boys and girls, were circulated, meaning going through every community, through newspapers, postcards, and various other multimedia arts. Moreover, the impact of moreover, the impact of general I need to get a mouse. Oh my gosh. Moreover, the impact of generational anti-black propaganda and degradation has left a deep impression. In today's cultures, the stereotypes of blacks are a continuous running joke. The jokes of how black people are born criminals, born lazy, born deadbeat dads, and born to be thieves, murderers, liars, and all out evil people. These stereotypes are alive and kicking. In America Motion Pictures, though it seems most black actors have often played characters that were typecasted, white Euro pictures in the States and globally in the cinemas have customarily illustrated black characters in a stereotypical fashion. This typical black illustrative fashion has been curated, designed, put together, pieced together, mindfully done, mindfully created, curated, and designed by white Euros throughout the centuries. So there are the 16th century, 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, 20th century, and now contemporary 21st century. In other words, how white people groups understand black people groups to be comes from their eugenic ideologies. That rhymed a little bit. The narrative of blacks being animals, inferior, inherently evil, the boogeyman, has its roots in their pseudoscience on the classification of race. Furthermore, the damage of the psyche of blacks from generational images of anti-blackness has been vast. Okay. Furthermore, the damage of the psyche of blacks from generational messages of anti-blackness has been vast. An example of this is the 20th century Dole test, where researchers conducted social experiments on adolescent boys and girls. The results of the tests administered were unsettling. Another example is the global standard of beauty. For many countries around the global world that we live in, around the globe, their standards of beauty have been set, zero set, net set, have been calibrated to that of white Euros. There are reasons for this phenomenon, and it comes from white imperialism, white enforced slavery, and white enforced colonization or colonialism. There are white imperialists, there are white capitalist slavery, and there are white colonization or colonialism projects. The damages of propagating anti-blackness has not just impacted blacks, but also it has affected a multitude of nations. This multitude of nations have a system of colorism that was embedded into the fabric of their society. Colorism is a tool that was utilized intentionally by white people groups since the 16th century. The darker a person's skin means, the uglier they are. Read it again, right? One more time. The damages of propagating anti-blackness has not just impacted blacks, but also it has affected a multitude of nations. This multitude of nations have a system of colorism that is embedded, infused into the fabric of their society. Colorism is a tool that was utilized intentionally by white people groups since the 16th century. The darker a person's skin means, the uglier they are. There is a big business industry that is built off of colorism. Skin bleaching lotions, skin bleaching soaps, and skin bleaching pills make up a billion-dollar industry. This colorism industry services countries in the West and East, the global North and the global South. At the same time, there are activists from every generation that have fought against the anti-blackness propaganda. Both men and women in every industry have created spaces where black people groups' voices are heard. Nevertheless, these are my thoughts on how images in the media muller the beauty of Afro phenotypes. What are your thoughts? Okay, and now I'm going to read another article. Once again, going into what Afro is, right? Going into the term Afro. All about the term Afro. Okay, so if you want a title for this live, it would be all about the Afro. Okay. Here's another article that I wrote, or essay that I wrote, entitled, "What's Up with the Term Black Fatigue?" And clicking on it, waiting for it to load. Okay, here we go. All right. What's up with the term Black fatigue? The reality that Black Americans have experienced multiple forms of oppressive practices in the United States is being under attack. So it's the reality that Black Americans have experienced multiple forms of oppression practices. That notion is being in the United States is being under attack. There has been difficulty for a huge populace to admit these truths. And if anyone has the courage to make an acknowledgement that Black Americans have been oppressed, then that fact and that act of confession might be treated as the worst sin anyone could commit. Ooh, no, that's a no-no. Okay? However, despite the government-sponsored slavery, oppression, and terrorism in the United States of America, Black Americans have survived the tyranny and have documented those experiences. One form of documentation is through the usefulness of creating their own studies. These studies consist of scholarly researched theories and ideas on the state of Blackness in the U.S. One example of the state of Black people's descendants of African chattel slavery was expressed through a post-civil rights term called Black fatigue. Moreover, the term was coined by Mary Frances Winters. A quote from her work on what the working definition of Black fatigue is. This is the working definition of Black fatigue, according to Mary Frances Winters. The definition is the multifaceted physical and psychological damage wrought by simply living day by day in a racist society. Read it again, sure will. Mary Frances Winters, who coined and created this term, Black fatigue, this is her definition for it, and this is the definition for it. The multifaceted physical and psychological damage wrought by simply living day by day in a racist society. In addition, white imperialists and nationalists have emerged again and fueled the surge of anti-Blackness. I'm going to read it again. In addition, white imperialists and white nationalists have emerged again, fueled the surge of anti-Blackness. Many American citizens have become more emboldened to express their views and ideologies, thoughts and opinions about religion, and American Black people groups have taken the stage. These religious thoughts and anti-Blackness opinions have been ignited in the hearts and minds of white and non-white people groups in America. The wave of anti-Black racist rhetoric has flooded mass media. The term Black fatigue was hijacked by white imperialists and nationalists. Those we also have supported, those we also have supported their efforts, I rewrote, I need to probably rewrite this. Those who have supported their efforts in stealing and repurposing this term are among both white and non-white demographics. They're not one-to-one though. Whiteness in America does not equate to one-to-one, meaning as the minorities, the fringe minorities, those minorities who are white adjacent because of their color politics, because of the race politics, or back home in their motherland, or the motherlands, or the heartland of Eurasia, they have a white Eurasianism fueled in their eugenics, fueled in their institutions. Before they come to America, they have these concepts and beliefs about what Blackness is because they were radicalized. Their ancestors, their mom and grandpapa were radicalized. When? At what time? Between wars, between the American Civil War, World War I, and World War II. Asia and Eurasian heartland were radicalized violently and also politically, but violently. How were they radicalized? And through which methods? Through politics, through capitalism, and through war. To believe that they had a white Euro pseudoscience beginnings, which is not true. It's mythology. It's made up. Not mythology. Mythology is not necessarily made up per se. Mythology itself, really quickly, mythology itself is mixed between facts, sciences, and storytelling. Mythologies have the representation of being lies and fairy tales and fables, and which some are. But that's not everyone. But Eurasianism is. White Eurasianism is one of those fables, okay? Because prior to whiteness being deposited into Asia through the white Eurasianism, Asians had initially embraced a black nationalism, meaning they knew who they were, according to Dr. Yi Zhang. Okay? I'm not saying that. Dr. Yi Zhang said that. Okay, back to the essay. The term black fatigue was hijacked by white imperialists and nationalists. Those who also have supported their efforts in stealing and repurposing this term of black fatigue are among both white and non-white demographics. In other words, white people groups, white Euro-Americans, and other minority people of color Americans who believed to be white adjacent because of their either white Eurasianism that they were radicalized to believe, or their whiteness that they were radicalized to believe in the Americas. These demographics helped surge the anti-blackness. These demographics of people helped surge and empower and embolden American citizens to be more anti-black than they ever were in the past 50 years. That's my opinion, though. But you can do your own research on that. But nonetheless, I carry on. Furthermore, the expressive term utilized to bear witness for the state of blackness has now and is now perverted. To white peoples of America, they changed this definition, and they changed the definition of this term. Now it currently means and expresses there. Who is there? White Euro-Americans. Because it has been hijacked, white fatigue has now come to mean for white Euro-Americans and those who are white adjacent Americans, who are majority or minorities, people of color. It has come to mean something totally different. To white peoples of America who changed the definition of this term, which currently means and expresses their experiential exhaustion with all black peoples of America and globally. What does that mean? That white Euro-Americans have hijacked a term that was meant to give witness and bear witness to the experiences and the atrocities and the oppression and the ills and the evils of what blackness experienced in the United States of America. That term, black fatigue, which was created by a wonderful, beautiful black American woman, that term was hijacked by white Euro-Americans and other minorities who claim to be white adjacent. It has come to mean something totally different. But yet it means now to majority of the ignorant Americans who don't know this, what the term actually means. It has come to mean and represent whiteness and white Euro people, Americans, citizens, come to mean that express their experiential exhaustion with all black people groups of America and globally. In other words, I'll break it even further down. White people are tired of anything that's darker than them. So all their stereotypes, all their tropes, all their madness, all the racism they get to hide behind people doing their dirty work for them and covering them so that they can just be racist all day long. You see what they said? Well, see, they say it over here. The Asian Americans say it over here. These other Black Americans say it over here. The Hispanic Americans say it over here. The Latino the Latino Americans say it over there. See, it's not just me. They're tired of Black people too. They're tired of Blackness too. Can't you see? They're tired of the criminals. They're tired of this hippity hop. They're tired of all of Black stealing and lying and cheating. All these tropes that come from a condition that they created. And lies. Mind you, stereotypes and tropes that were created by white European groups. If you watch and you pay attention to the information that's being brought out, okay, that these stereotypes and tropes took small kernels of facts, small kernels of truth, and turned it up from a 1% to 100,000%, and flooded the media. That even now, even to this day, from the 15th century till now, that people actually believe in their psyche that Black people are inherently and genetically evil and wrong. Prior to that, no one believed that. Prior to the 15th century, no one believed that. No one believed that prior to the 15th century. I carry on. The imperialists and nationalists among them preference. So they have a preference here. I write, the imperialists and nationalists among them, among who? The white Euro-Americans who are and embrace white Euro-imperialism and who will also embrace white Euro-nationalism or nationalist of America. Among them, they preference that all citizens who they identify as Black, here's the key point, who they identify as Black. So how do white Euro-Americans identify Black people? By how they treat you. So to my East Indian Americans, yeah, you Black to them. They're not gonna say you Black, but they're gonna treat you like one. To my Asian Americans, yeah. You can bleach the Blackness away all day long. They're gonna treat you the same way. To my Hispanic and Latino brethren and sisterin, now come on. You already know, I don't even have to go there. And my Black brothers and sisters of America, we already know. We know all too well. Okay. So, some would suggest that it would be a stretch to make that connection. Let me start back up again. Okay. The white Euro imperialists and nationalists among them who preference to hijack this term Black fatigue are American citizens. And they identify other American citizens who they deem as Black They believe they should be deported from the United States of America. I'm not making it up. They have said that, and it's in their literature. So if you ain't, I don't care if you light, bright, almost white, if you ain't white to them, if you do not meet their classification of white, that's why I said this is why I say I'm not doing that. I'm not going based upon no one's classification, especially white people's, Americans. And this is not hate. This is talking about historically what has happened. If you think that this is hate, then you don't know what hate is. If you think this is racism, then you don't know what racism is. If you think that this is bigotry, you don't know what bigotry is. Step in a Black American's shoes and you'll find out what bigotry is. You'll find out what racism is in America. But I digress. Okay. I move forward. At the same time, these thoughts and ideologies give a vast resemblance and a callback to the 15th century, where white Euro nationalists of that time fashioned, created, molded, put together, designed, fashioned deportation decrees for the religious and zealous Blacks in Europe, in Eastern Europe and in Western Europe. There were indigenous Blacks and non-indigenous Blacks. There were Black people on both sides of Eastern Europe and Western Europe, Western Europe and Eastern Europe. What happened during the 15th century? You can look this up. You can research this yourself. Where white Euro nationalists fashioned deportation decrees for the religious and zealous Blacks in Europe. Some would suggest that it would be a stretch of the imagination or a stretch as such to make this connection. What connection? Between how white Euro-Americans treat Blacks and how white Europeans of the 15th century treated Blacks. There are parallels. There are parallels. But if one looks carefully at the details, then the matter makes sense. Lastly, these are my thoughts on the term Black fatigue. What are your thoughts? Okay, so now we've reached our hour mark, over our hour mark, and I'm trying to discipline myself not to go over an hour, to try to get everything I can get in an hour. So I'm going to have to close it out here because I didn't even get into what I wanted to get into altogether. But I'll have to save that for another live, another day. So thank you everyone for tuning in to this live of Café Wish Podcast. I am your humbled host, Caven Black. And please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Come on and join this group here of free intellectuals, free-minded people. Okay? We are able to, like SpongeBob, imagination. We're able to stretch our imagination. We're free thinkers. We are people who deconstruct. We are people who think. So come on, like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, always remember, my people, be happy, be smart, be healthy. Take care, guys.